mawevu amburangarira panero parakadeukira kubatana ndokwatoshoera.
So, hello and welcome to our newest podcast episode to this Zimbabwean independence series, which we are hosting with the pillars of love, engage, and represent. As always, we are meant to talk about our country in a very positive way. We want to highlight the beauties of Zimbabwe, and I'm very happy that today I've got with me Mr. Mtumbi. Would you introduce yourself?
Thank you very much. Mr. Mtumbi, a proud and patriotic Zimbabwean. I'm glad to be with you on this program.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, I would love to start off with a light question. So, what comes to mind when you think of the things that you are proud of as a Zimbabwean?
Yeah, quite a list would come to my mind.
Yeah.
The beauty, the love and the oneness of the people, which are quite peace-loving.
Yes.
You also think of the childhood life, which was stressful out in the country, rural lifestyle. Those are the things that you rush into your mind when you think of your beautiful Zimbabwe. But with the passage of time, you would also now think of things that are really making people come all the way to see in Zimbabwe the tourist attraction like Victoria Falls. It's a marvel to look at. So you can't separate Vic Falls, Great Zimbabwe with the beauty of Zimbabwe as well.
Yes, I think that's very right, especially Victoria Falls. Even here in Germany, I've seen that they are starting to pick up on Victoria Falls as a tourist attraction. They're now even offering flights directly from Frankfurt to Victoria Falls. I've seen that Zimbabwe in the tourist area, we've kept on improving, and I think even the money generated through tourism, we doubled. So as you can see, Zimbabwe is a beauty, but I would love to pick up on what you said about the oneness of the people, because I think that as Zimbabweans, it is quite remarkable that we seem to be presenting ourselves as one, which is unique in the situation we find ourselves in. We don't want to speak about political issues or the sort, but can you speak to the character of the Zimbabwean people and our peace-loving nature?
Yes, sure. A Zimbabwean, if I'm to describe him as somebody who wouldn't want to get confrontational if there's a way out.
Yes.
And you can see that by the way they treat all foreign and local and peers amongst themselves.
Yeah.
No wonder why when as I travel around, people might comment about Zimbabwe being docile, but it is the peace-loving that is engrafted in the nationals of Zimbabwe,
yeah,
which make them really not want to be confrontational or very judgmental about others, but very accommodative and loving.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I think as Zimbabweans, we have quite made a name for ourselves as not only peace-loving people, but also in the sake of being very highly educated. You say you're someone who travels a lot. So do you see yourself confronted with a lot of positive stereotypes about Zimbabwe?
It might be very difficult to be apolitical on this specific subject, because the great comments I've heard were for the former president, how he would stand his ground but still accommodative. And yes, for those who have been in Zimbabwe, the comments are so overwhelming. They'll still echo the love and the accommodativeness and the peace loving in the majority of the nationals of Zimbabwe.
Yes, So yeah, as you said, on to kind of lead away from that specific topic, I'd love to give you another question. What does it for you personally mean to be Zimbabwean?
Great Zimbabwe.
Yes.
It is quite a joy, and frankly speaking, I wouldn't wish to be any other national besides Zimbabwe. Probably is this attachment which came by being born and bred in such a community.
Yes.
But as we've said, it's peace-loving. To tell you the truth, there are some nations that when I go there, I am tense up to the moment I'm at the airport leaving that area, because of the crime rate, the rudeness and friendliness of people. So whenever I cross back into Zimbabwe, there's that inner peace and comfort that comes knowing that I'm around people who would hardly harm you and be judgmental about you.
Yeah, I can also speak to that because as someone living in the diaspora here in Germany, I have to say that, that being Zimbabwean, it never quite leaves you. Even my friends, they all know that I'm from Zimbabwe. I've got a lot of friends who are also like from African descent or who have a migrational background, and they almost like try to hide it and try to fit in. But with me, I'm quite offensive being Zimbabwe because I'm so proud. I'm like talking about Zimbabwe. For me, it's always a great joy, and I've been starting like to interact with my friends and sharing our culture. I remember even a friend of mine came over the house and we ate sadza together. And I found it quite interesting that when I presented him with our culture and like even Nemtupu and stuff like that, how amazed he was in a positive way, and the interest people show in knowing Zimbabwe. And I think that's kind of a bit in the contrast of what we as Zimbabweans sometimes think. We may think that that our culture might be boring to other people, but I can only appeal to say to the young people or even to the young Zimbabweans, it's important that we represent Zimbabwe wherever we are, and that we engage not only ourselves as Zimbabweans, but also other people, so that we can start transforming the narrative around Zimbabwe and show the people basically what we love about Zimbabwe. So
if I may interject, sorry, before you even forget that what you are saying, I was interacting with one colleague here in Australian,
yes,
and I was talking on how Zimbabweans would have an extended family, so that when you would help not only into your immediate or your siblings, but to quite an extended family. And I was trying like saying, that's why we sometimes don't manage to excel so much in financial issues. But guess what? He marveled so much that is something really that we miss in the East and West there, that people are so much into nucleus families rather than the extended family. So it's some of those things that you do as your culture, that when you explain it to other people, they'll still marvel and like it, as it were.
Yes, and that's where we need to get as Zimbabweans, because, for example, I see Nigerians are very open with their culture, and it has kind of occurred that we've taken the Nigerian culture or the Ghanaian culture to be the overall African one. So I think as Zimbabweans, we now need to learn to navigate our own culture into presenting it and to showing that we are, as a country, unique and in our customs and tradition, that we are quite, founded in that. So, but that leads me to almost like to Zimbabwean independence. So we want to talk about independence. So just in overall, not in terms of Zimbabwe, what does independence mean to you?
The Zimbabwean independence, can you rephrase that?
Yes. What does independence mean to you? So what comes to mind when you think about independence?
When I think of independence in the Zimbabwean aspect context, it's like being able to do what you wish to do without limitation or constraints, and being able to share and to excel in your line of expertise without hindrance, and being yourself in a way.
Yeah. So, and I would say that when it comes to independence, especially Zimbabwean independence, once again, I think it shows this, what should I say, this great story around Zimbabwe. So for me, especially what I love when I hear about Zimbabwean independence are the stories of Sekuruka Gurun. So, that kind of that magic around Zimbabwe, if you say like a fairy tale type of narrative. Do you agree?
Yeah, totally agree. Because if you look at what they stood for, they just stood for having to be considered as equals, and having their rights not curtailed by anyone for whatever reason. And that culture is dominant in all generations ever since. That the Zimbabwean is a Zimbabwean, peace-loving as he is, he treasures his independence. You will see him, wouldn't have wanted to go political, but that question, because of independence,
Yes.
You would see why a lot of Zimbabweans are still supporting the status quo, is because they see a foreign hand, which they feel is interference and is taking away their independence. So they tend to resent, even by keeping the status quo.
Yes. What I also have noticed is that in general, like you said, as Zimbabweans, we are resilient. I've seen it that even when it comes to in all aspects, in interaction with other people, or even with my own siblings, we are so, I wouldn't say to say positive, let me keep the word resilient. And it comes, I think, from what you said, that aspect for us as Zimbabweans, having fought for independence in a way, which wasn't about as far as I can say, about discriminating anyone, but just in a way of saying we want justice and we want to be treated equal. And I think that's also part of our culture, that we see everyone as equal, and even among ourselves as Zimbabweans, we take each other to be equal, and that we value that equality within us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Correct.
So
correct. Yeah, right.
So we've talked quite a lot about Zimbabwe independence. So now I would love to pose a question to you. If you were to write a phrase in a love letter to Zimbabwe, what would that phrase be? So I know I've put you on the spot right there.
Zimbabwe has got a phrase which suits it well: Great Zimbabwe, the land of the legends.
So that would be your phrase to Zimbabwe.
Yeah, Great Zimbabwe.
I think it's quite a good phrase. But to just round it up, so how do you think we can further represent Zimbabwe in a positive way, no matter at our jobs or at school? Do you have any advice?
I think if you look at all the negative narratives, they come through media.
Yes.
And it's so much repeated to an extent that some of the lies can be taken to be true. So to counter that, you also need to have people on the ground to refute any misinformation that is out there. Yes. So a platform like this, where you put the correct narrative, where you put the positive narrative to as many as possible, and an average person would then have to look at what is being said by the mainline medias and other quarters against the fact that is being spoken by the people on the ground, and any average person would see the correct narrative that on the ground things are not as bad or as ugly as they are made to sound.
Yeah. So yeah, you've quite nailed it there. For example, like even I think for this we're going to make it part of the theme as well. So I came across a quote which said, "Until the lion learns how to ride, the story will always glorify the hunter." So in kind of in the perspective of telling your own story, even as Zimbabweans, I think it's time for us that we just don't let other people speak about Zimbabwe, but that we literally own our narrative and say, look at us, we are a beautiful country, and yeah, and that we are going to develop. So I know that was supposed to be the last question, but questions keep coming into my head.
Okay.
What future wishes do you have for Zimbabwe?
Zimbabwe being endowed with many natural resources, from good climate for agriculture to the natural resources in the minerals. My dream and hope and wish is that as Zimbabweans from across the globe can come and add value to what they have so that they can become the best the nation can be. Taking a cue from countries like Singapore, countries like United Arab Emirates, where they used their resources and their own skill to build their nation. So my dream is for an independent Zimbabwe where we don't need to rely on other funding and other people's ideas, but to grow from within. And when we do that, a Zimbabwean dream would have been realized.
Yeah, you phrased that quite well, the Zimbabwean dream. So we'll run with that as well, the Zimbabwean dream. Yeah, thank you very much. I think we got a lot of insight from that. For me personally, I have to say this was a very nice conversation to have. It's always refreshing talking about Zimbabwe, and especially in such a manner, just for a change. You know, loving on our nation, and I hope that even that both of us continue these conversations at work, at school, no matter where it is, that we carry out that spirit which we have summoned here today into the world as well. So I'm putting a challenge to you as well to say, wherever you are, love, engage, and represent Zimbabwe in the best way possible.
You surely do. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for your time. So that was it, guys. Make sure to engage in the comments. Tell us what you thought about the episode. We want to hear your voices, and even to those listening as well at home. Make sure to post about this in the social media. Also engage your friends in the conversation, and for you as well, represent. We'll see you till the next time. Bye-bye.
Mwana wefu wangu rangarira panero paraka